I don't think so, but that doesn't mean we can't have too much of the word love, L-O-V-E. J.A.T. Robinson wrote Honest to God in 1963. And in it, he challenged us to put away the word God for a generation, because he argued the word caused more confusion than anything else. Now, it was not that he did not believe in the divine reality, because he did. It's just that some words can get overused, and like pizza, which is delicious and wonderful, they can become tiresome. Powerful words can lose their spark of beauty through overuse. And I think the word love might just be like that. Now, don't get me wrong. I love love as much as anybody else, but the overuse of the word has threatened to make it redundant and tired. Kirster Stendahl, another personal hero of mine, wrote the 10 Commandments of Preaching. The 9th commandment is, you shall not use the word love unless it is in the text. And I believe this is because the word love can become a sloppy catch-all that begins to mean so much that it begins to mean nothing at all. So I remember the first time I told my wife, I love you. She was driving and dropping me off at the corner of Oak and 41st, I think, in Vancouver. We'd been dating for a while, and I had not yet told her that I love you. The words sort of slipped out of my mouth before I even thought about it as I was stepping out of the car, almost as if by mistake. They were out of my mouth before I even realized that I had said them. And the traffic was such that she had to drive away, and the moment could not be lingered upon. So there's something powerful and wonderful about a relationship's first I love you, even if it comes sort of by mistake. It signifies that it is important. The relationship is important to the one who's saying the words. It expresses a commitment that is beginning to form and a connection that is developing that is important. There's a feeling of affection and concern for the other. Now, I believe we've all heard stories told about parents who never said, I love you. And what a horrible thing. It is never enough to assume that the other person knows these sorts of things. Some things need to be said. All this is to say that I don't really think we should be putting away the word love. It needs to be used. The problem is now I say I love you to my wife so often that it almost fails to get a notice. In pandemic times, when I am used to interacting with the same group of people for an extended period of time, I get so used to saying I love you to all of them that it comes out of my mouth sometimes when I least intend it. I remember going to a drive-in coffee shop, and the person handed me the coffee, and I told him, without even realizing it, I love you. It was very embarrassing. But this is what happens when you overuse a word. It sometimes, or an expression, it just begins to be part of casual conversation, and the real meaning of it is kind of lost. And what is it that we mean when we say, I love you? Well, there's a few things from John's gospel that might help us break through the overfamiliarity of this word. The love that Jesus has in mind in his gospel, in the gospel according to John, is rooted in a relationship with Jesus. It is rooted in a relationship with the divine. This sort of love is something that John believes naturally emerges when we abide in Jesus, abide in God through Jesus. To be connected to Jesus in this way will lead to a few outcomes, according to John. One is the knowledge that we are loved, and another is that we will start to have a meaningful feeling of love for others. And this is a beautiful thing. Another thing that John speaks about is that love is connected to an experience of joy. A self-giving love can become exploitative. Usually, though certainly not always, women in some relationships can adopt or can be coerced to adopt an attitude of service towards another. They tell themselves or are told that they need to love as Jesus loved us. And abusive relationships can have this feature. One person within the relationships wants to or is manipulated into adopting a self-giving attitude that the other is happy to accept, but rarely reciprocates. The key, or at least one key, in being able to recognize whether a self-giving love is healthy or not is the presence of joy. If the service to which you feel led does not result in joy, then there is a reason to pause and reconsider whether it is really worth your energy. Another thing that is helpful that John speaks of is that there is a change of status. The word servant that we heard read, that I read to you earlier, is a poor translation, I believe. It seeks not to offend. The word is doulos in Greek, and it should really be translated as slave. So it should read, I do not call you slaves any longer, but I have called you friends. Previously in John, and subsequently for what it's worth, Jesus refers to his followers as slaves. But here, when speaking about love, he calls them friends. So true love involves a new status and a new relationship and a new connection. The word that is translated as love is the well-known Greek word agape. In an authoritative Greek dictionary, this word is defined as the quality of warm regard for and interest in another, esteem, affection, regard, love. Now, the word love is in the definition, but so are some other pretty telling words. It is a warm regard, so there's an emotional quality to it. It is not a calculated ethical strategy. It's closer to a feeling. It would perhaps be said that it's even deeper than an emotion. It goes to the core of one's desiring volitional self. When I translate the word agape, I like the word affection because it's not as overused as the word love. Agape is a connection between people that brings them together affectionately. To love one's neighbor is to be affectionate. It is to care, not to calculate. It's to demonstrate affection. And this can often be a small thing, a smiling eye, kind word, a gentle manner. It can be simple, small, but it is the basic building block of community. Without it, a collection of people will be isolated and alone, regardless of how many people are present. And with it, the world changes. My dream for St. Hilda's is that we become a community of this sort of connection. I have found it to already be this sort of community, but such is the way of things when speaking about something like love. No matter how well we are doing, we can always do better. I pray that we become a community that grows in love in how we have and express the regard and interest we have for one another, and that we hold each other in esteem and with affection. And that we be a community that is quick to include others into this circle of warm affection and regard. That our circle of connections grows so that our affection for each other continues to develop to include those inside the community as well as those outside of it. So let us love one another. I love you. There, I said it.